On August 6, 2026, something happened to SpaceX stock that most retail investors didn't fully understand, and honestly, most still don't.
Over 900 million shares, held by employees and early investors, suddenly became eligible to sell, not sold, eligible to sell. That distinction matters more than almost anyone talking about this story is explaining clearly to their audience right now. And here's the part that should get your attention: this wasn't even the big one, there's a bigger wave coming. Today we're breaking down what happened, why it's already caused a brutal decline, and what December's wave could mean.
Quick context: in case you haven't been following this closely, here's what's actually been happening with SpaceX stock. SpaceX went public on June 11, 2026, pricing its IPO at $135 a share, raising $75 billion. The largest IPO in history, the stock popped hard on day one, closing up about 19%, near $161. But since that early high, the stock has fallen sharply, down around 43% from its peak by early August. A significant decline for a company that generated this much excitement, and exactly the environment the August unlock landed in. So let's actually unpack the August 6th unlock event itself, because the specific mechanics genuinely matter here. Under SpaceX's lockup terms, employees could unlock an initial 20% of holdings shortly after Q2 earnings released publicly. There was also a bonus provision, an additional 10% unlock, triggered because the stock traded 30% above IPO price. That bonus condition was met, meaning the unlock ended up larger than the baseline 20% alone would have been. Combined, that added up to roughly 911.5 million shares becoming eligible for sale at once. A massive jump in potential supply, especially compared to the relatively small public float SpaceX had been trading with. Now, here's the nuance almost nobody explains clearly, and it's genuinely important: this event is not dilution at all. Dilution happens when a company issues brand new shares, increasing total shares outstanding, spreading ownership across a larger pie entirely. That's not what happened here. The total number of SpaceX shares didn't increase on August 6 whatsoever, actually. What changed is shares that already existed, previously locked and untradeable, became legally eligible to sell on the open market. The real risk isn't your ownership stake getting diluted, it's about supply and demand shifting suddenly and dramatically.
When previously untradeable shares suddenly can be sold, and holders decide to cash in, that creates real selling pressure. Here's something that tells you the market already saw this coming: short interest built up significantly heading into the date. When traders anticipate new sellable supply hitting the market, some position themselves to profit from an expected price decline. A significant buildup of short interest heading into August 6 suggests the market was actively expecting real selling pressure. Analysts have drawn direct comparisons to Uber's IPO years ago, where overvaluation concerns combined with lockup expirations created similar dynamics. Now let's get to the part giving this video its title: the second wave, genuinely bigger than what we covered. SpaceX's full 180-day IPO lockup period is set to expire on December 8, 2026, according to the staggered release schedule. This date is expected to trigger a much larger unlock, reportedly around 66% of total locked shares eligible, covering the broader employee base rather than just the initial 20 to 30% tranche we saw back in August. If August's unlock, covering a smaller slice, built significant short interest and coincided with a sharp decline, consider December's scale. A second unlock nearly tripled the size, hitting the market just months later, is a genuinely bigger structural event.
There's actually a third wave beyond the two. Elon Musk's personal holdings remain locked until June of 2027 entirely.
This brings us to the actual myth worth addressing, that an unlock event automatically means a stock is doomed. Neither extreme is accurate. Unlock events increase potential supply, they don't force anyone to actually sell their shares. Plenty of employees who believe strongly in the company's prospects choose to hold rather than cash out immediately, honestly.
The unlock creates the possibility of selling pressure, it doesn't guarantee it will actually happen at scale, necessarily. Surviving one wave relatively intact doesn't mean the next, larger wave will play out identically for the stock. So if you're following this stock, what should you actually be watching heading into December's unlock specifically, closely?
First, watch trading volume and price action in the weeks around December 8. Heavy volume suggests real selling occurring.
Second, watch short interest data as it develops closer to the date, signaling renewed positioning for expected volatility ahead. Third, pay attention to underlying fundamentals, Starlink subscriber growth, launch cadence, revenue trends separately from short-term price action. Unlock-driven volatility is a supply and demand story, not necessarily a verdict on the underlying business itself, genuinely, honestly speaking. Now someone will say, but SpaceX's actual business is strong, Starlink revenue is growing fast, so why does this matter? That's fair, and strong fundamentals can eventually outweigh short-term, unlock-driven selling pressure over a long enough timeline, genuinely. But even a fundamentally strong company can experience painful, extended price pressure when a large percentage of shares become sellable. So here's the honest bottom line: the August unlock wasn't the full story, it was really just the opening act. The market's reaction, including short interest buildup and the sharp price decline, suggests investors are taking this risk seriously. December's unlock is structurally bigger, and June 2027's final unlock, involving Musk's holding, looms even further out beyond. I'm not a financial advisor, and this isn't a recommendation to buy or sell, just a breakdown of what's happening. Tell me in the comments, are you holding SpaceX stock through this, or watching from the sidelines until December? If this helped you understand what's actually driving the volatility, hit subscribe. We'll cover December's unlock as it approaches. I'll see you in the next one. Thanks so much for watching, and invest carefully with full information always.